And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're taking a look at a game called Hero vs. Guardian, a game of Dungeoncraft. Essentially, this is a game that takes the whole role-playing experience and condenses it to a very simple, fast card game where one person is the Guardian, or the Dungeon Master, and the other person has a group of heroes who continually die. Let's take a look. The game can be played from 2 to 4 players, but when you play with more than 2 players, essentially you're playing one player versus each of the other players in turn, and it doesn't work very well at all. So I'm going to talk about the two-player game. In a two-player game, one person is the Dungeon Master, and they have a bunch of starting dungeon cards, which you can tell by the color on the outside, and they can place them in any place they want, and they can put the entry points in 2 spots on the board. The hero has a party which is essentially going to move in one of the entry spots and then move throughout the dungeon. In a sense, setting up the dungeon is kind of like Stratego, because there's one room, the treasure vault, which you do not want the heroes to get to, because if they get to that room and take it, the game will be over. So you want to put it somewhere safe, but at the same time, the heroes may figure that's where you put it, somewhere in the bottom row, and head straight down there, and you put it on the top row. Now, the heroes are going to have a party full of different characters. Here's an example of a character, a mage, which has different abilities: trap, magic, brute, and evil. Those are the different types of rooms that you will run across. This is a cleric, and this is a warrior. You can see a warrior is very good at using any room that takes brute force, while a room that has traps in it, he's pretty bad at. As the game progresses, you might find other people, like, for example, the rogue is very good with traps, and you might even find ones that are specific, like instead of being a cleric, here we have a sprite cleric. Now, the hero is going to get 6 stones each round of the game, and the Dungeon Master is going to get 2. The hero always goes first, and the Dungeon Master always has the option to go last. Now, a hero can do several things. They can recruit more heroes and add them to their party. It takes an action, a stone, to put one in their hand, and then they can play them down. They can also recruit magical items, which, like this magic sword, can add +1 to a brute, to one of the heroes, or +1 evil when fighting evil rooms to a hero, or shielding, which gives you a special ability, or you can draw from the top of the decks for these cards, and they can be placed on your heroes. But mostly what heroes are going to do are they're going to go into the dungeon. They can either do that by scouting or venturing. Scouting is more like you're just going to be looking at the cards that are in the dungeon so that you can see what's there. While venturing, you actually go in. Scouting is much less dangerous than venturing. But when you do either one of those, what you're going to do is you're going to take your cards in your party. So let's say I have a mage, cleric, and warrior, and I say, okay, the warrior is going to go in first, then the mage, and finally the cleric will go in third into the room. So then we will take a look at the room, and we see the value of this room is a 1. 1 point. Scouting rolls in a shadowed chamber are -2. So if I was scouting this chamber, it would be more difficult if I was venturing in it. What I would need to do is I would need to roll a 6. Now, this is an evil room, so I look at my adventurer, and he is a +3 on evil, so I roll my die. 3 + 2 is 5. I have failed. Now, if I was scouting, no problem. Unless you roll a 1. If you roll a 1 which shows a skull, then the Dungeon Master captures your person. However, if I was venturing them, then they would capture my person no matter what. So you're trying to roll those numbers or higher. There's also, if the warrior is captured, then you would go to the second person and then to the third person. Although after the first person, you're allowed to retreat. Once you've successfully scouted a room, then that's left face up. Once you have ventured a room, we put a map token there so that you can just, from now on, you can go to this room or this room as long as they are adjacent. So that's the way the game is going to progress. If they fail getting a room, then the room will go back to the Dungeon Master and it will score half points for him, while when the heroes capture a room, it's worth full points. The Dungeon Master, though, is going to be able to add cards to the different rooms. Like, when you add a card to a room, You just put that there, and when you go through this room here now, you have to go through both rooms in order. Here, and you can see they add different things. Secret door ambush or a cursed blade. Here it's -1 from everything. It's magic room, but once you defeat this room, now you have the cursed blade, which makes you -1 on all your options. Some rooms are much harder than other rooms, and so the bad guy is going to be drawing these cards and placing them out. He can also rearrange rooms if he wants to as one of his actions, but he only has 2 actions to take each turn. So the game will go until either the Dungeon Master can no longer draw cards, or until the heroes discover the treasure room. At that point, you will add up point totals. If the Dungeon Master has captured heroes, they score points for him, as well as any treasure rooms he might have gotten, while the heroes will add up their treasure room points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. And so that's how you play the game. If you play with 4 players, 3 or 4 players, each person will run their party one at a time. And I just found that kind of awkward. It just didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked it to have gone. As the game stands, a 2-player game I think is the fastest. You're not going to find anything super deep here. It's total luck many of the times where you roll the dice. But it's fun, I mean, because it's so fast. I would have 0 tolerance for this game if it took longer than 15 minutes, but it doesn't. A 15-minute game, like I said, it has that stratego feel where, you know, where did I put the treasure room and you move there. Different kinds of traps and treasures and warriors and such, but really, you can scout rooms, you know, to save yourself time. I mean, to help it make it look better in the long run, but then you just give the Dungeon Master more chance to put out more traps and cards. So you're really just best off kicking the door in and going in, and if you lose guys, you lose guys, and if you don't, you don't. And in the long run, I don't think anyone who ever plays this is going to say, well, I played a strategic game this day. But I can see having a lot of fun with it. The artwork certainly adds to the experience, and it's fast. I just think it's best played with 2. Hero versus Guardian.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.